Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Travel Coffee Break. I'm Alistair Mackenzie, and here I am. And I should have, well, a couple of guests with me this week, although I've only just got one at the moment, and I'm hoping that the second Stacey will turn up. The topic for this week is, with Stacey, my missing guest, is going to be the medieval jousting tournament that's taking place. It's an annual event at Arundel Castle in July, and Stacey's responsible for putting that whole thing together. And he was going to tell us how that all works, because I hadn't realized until I was reading about it earlier this week that it's actually quite a competitive exercise. And the other part of the program, we're going to be joined, or are already joined, by Malcolm Ginsberg, who some of you may remember from previous episodes. Malcolm's fairly regular and is our aviation stroke business travel guru. Good afternoon to you, Malcolm.
Hello, and good afternoon to you, Alex. Alistair, I'm so sorry.
We were going to basically get an update on this week's aviation news. So there's a couple of, I think, fairly obvious topics. Why don't you kick off with what you think is probably the most significant this week?
Well, the most important thing I must say to anybody watching is that we are having trouble with the distribution of business travel news. Not only us, but there's a number of newsletters that are not just getting out. We got about 45,000 and 12,000 have been returned. Now, we get about 200 scam emails a day, and there's all sorts of people that are putting up software to try and stop this. Trouble is they're being a bit over eager. So we do have a serious problem. And if you don't get your business travel news, please, Alistair, please remind people it's www.btnews.co.uk, and it costs you nothing. And also we're now on Twitter. We're not that very good on the technical side, but every day we're trying to update what's going on the next Monday's issue. And the news of this week, well, the news of this week might break tomorrow, because tomorrow the Aviation Club, that's on Thursday, guest of honour is John Kay from Heathrow Airport. He's been there just a year in charge, and previously he was responsible for putting together the very, very good Terminal 2. He's been a good, articulate spokesman for the airport, and he will be talking at the Aviation Club. The problem is that he's going over ground that we all know about, and the other problem is, will Sir Howard Davis actually listen? Now, Sir Howard was supposed to put in his report straight after the election. He's delayed this because of problems with emissions, so we don't know really when that's going to happen, except on July the 4th and 5th, I think it is. There's a very big gathering in London called UK Airports, which is supposed to discuss what Davis has recommended. Problem is, Davis may not have recommended it by that date. So tomorrow we've got John Holland Kay, and we still don't know what the Aviation Commission is going to say. I've also written an interesting comment item for Monday. I'm not sure if I'm going to publish it yet. I have to talk it over with one or two others to see, make sure I'm not in a legal mess, and that's that when a reporter interviews somebody, normally against the airport, of course we will have to have a balanced view. The first question they should ask them, if they're in the Heathrow area, is how long have you lived at Heathrow? And secondly, did you know there was an airport around the corner? So I'm going to write this, not sure if I'm going to publish it yet. My other great idea with the computers, which you may have some thoughts on, is whether we'll blacklist some of these people. I mean, they're very, very anti-airport, but they also fly out of Heathrow. My idea is when they get to the check-in, the thing goes, ping, I'm sorry, Mr. Sir, but you're anti-airports, can't fly on my airplanes. And don't argue with me, it's under my terms and conditions.
Yeah, no, I hear where you're coming from. Let me just wind back for those of you who aren't aware of what some of these things are. We were talking about Business Travel News, BTN, which is Malcolm's newsletter, and it comes out every Sunday night, late on Sunday night, early hours of the morning. Stacey's joined us, I'm pleased to see. Can you hear us, Stacey?
Hello. Hello,
Excellent.
Alistair. Sorry for the little slight delay there.
That's all right. That's all right. We're kicking off anyway. Let me introduce you to Malcolm Ginsberg. We're talking about aviation at the moment. Malcolm produces Business Travel News newsletter, and that newsletter comes out, as I say, every Sunday evening, very late, usually about sort of midnight. And you were talking earlier about having circulation problems this week. I must admit, in the morning when I look at my in-tray, it wasn't there. So clearly, if you're down from, was it 45,000 copies go out every week, and you're down to 12,000, is this a problem you're getting sorted out?
We've lost 12,000 bounce back. Now, our readers should be able to go straight onto the web and read BTN on the web. The problem is that what most people tend to do is to look at the headlines that they like themselves on the email version. You just click through to the ones that you want to read about, and you don't look at anything else. If you go to the web version, which in my opinion is much clearer and more interesting, you can also be selective. It's a question of trying to remind people, busy people, normally on a Monday morning, to go to the web and have a look at Business Travel News.
Okay, the story that runs and runs and runs is the one that we were mentioning there. It's the issue of London's third runway. We've got to the point where Sir Howard Davis is heading up the Airports Commission, and as you say, was due to report was it before or after the election? Either way, it got stalled at the last minute because they suddenly had to address some European issues over the environmental air quality and the like. And so the whole thing has been delayed. Now, what you were saying, Malcolm, is that you've got managing director of Heathrow coming into the Aviation Club, which is the Aviation Club is the sort of industry club where all the CEOs and the top people all gather. It's down at Hyde Park Corner, isn't it? Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Well, what happens is we have about 8 lunches a year, and in fact we're celebrating, I think it's 25 years quite shortly. We have 8 lunches a year. And we try and attract the top people in the industry. Last month we had Stuart from Gatwick Airport, and this week is John this month rather, it's John from from Heathrow. Now, I don't know how the viewers are, but I've lost you, sir.
Oh right, have you?
You're back with me.
Yeah.
Well, we're okay then. So that's the situation. We have these 8 lunches a year. We try and get top people from the industry, not necessarily the airport directors. We get airlines. We've got Willie Walsh coming along, and people from all aspects, the many aspects of the travel business. So that's tomorrow. It should be quite interesting.
And the point really is here that this thing has been dragging on. We want clearly to try and resolve it. Everybody wants to try and resolve it now, and we're beginning to get sort of the unofficial word coming through. There was a comment this morning. There was a big travel conference this morning, social media travel conference this morning. Is it Chris Hume? I think former spokesman on the environment. He was speaking there this morning, and I saw several tweets saying that he was pretty assured that the argument was being steered towards in Heathrow's favour. In other words, for a third runway at Heathrow as opposed to Gatwick. So you can tell we're getting that kind of ground rush thing at the moment where people are beginning to speculate and place bets, and we don't know which way it's going to go, but it is all getting heated up. The other thing, Malcolm, that we were talking about earlier on this week, and that you were mentioning in BTN, is the Malaysia Airlines restructuring. Now, that's something that probably won't affect travellers very much, but it's quite significant from the airline's perspective, isn't it?
It's a major restructuring, and you have to ask the question, why have they got themselves into such a mess? For the last many years, they have been, that's Malaysian Airlines, the only airline flying between Kuala Lumpur and Heathrow. They've had it to themselves. They've put the 380 on. It's a good service, but for some reason they've been losing money. I mean, you don't lose money on a Heathrow service when you're the only operator. Now, this week, British Airways is going on the service. But British Airways has real strength in attracting passengers and will do well. They've only got a 777, which, in all fairness, is not as comfortable as the A380. Will that airline, Malaysia that is, be the first airline to actually sell its A380s? It has 2 on the market, we are told, and would accept some serious bids for its other 4. It's got 6. In a few weeks' time, we've got the Paris Air Show. Now, again, interesting, A380. A380s are not selling. They haven't sold one for 2 years. We're hearing noises out of Airbus that they're going to announce many orders. Doesn't say A380. The A380 and the 747 might be reaching the end of their times. We just don't know.
Interesting to know what the market rate is for a used A380.
Yes, that's a very good.
He's checking his piggy bank. I should say, by the way, for viewers, if you've got any questions, then don't forget we've got the Q&A app. So if you're watching this on the event page itself, you should see top right-hand corner a little button, Q&A, and if you press that, you can write questions into us, and we'll address them. Malcolm, the third and probably last thing to talk about is Aer Lingus. Where have we got to with that? Because there's some suggestion that there may be a purchase.
Situation on that is very simple. Aer Lingus is owned 30% by Ryanair. Mr. Michael O'Leary being the chief executive. He's the chief executive. Even Michael O'Leary has to report to the board. A certain Mr. Willie Walsh, who was chief executive and resigned in a huff some years ago, and now is the chief executive of IAG, that's the group that includes British Airways, Iberia, Vueling, etc., has made a bid. And he says his bid is final. It's as final as the final bid he previously made as the final bid. So we have now got the situation that the other shareholder, which is, I think, 25% of the major shareholder, the Irish government, says, yes, we will sell our share, providing that IAG will give us certain our conditions. We are waiting to find out from Mr. O'Leary or the board of the PLC where their situation is. Michael has always had the idea to run a low-cost budget airline across from Ireland to the United States, and it will probably work. And the idea, I think, that the mechanism for this is going to be Aer Lingus. Seems to me what will happen now is that Michael will try and extract a bit more money out of Walsh, consider himself the victor, and walk away with it. It'll be done in such a way that Walsh will also look as though he's won. So you've got an interesting match between these 2 Irishmen where they're both going to be the winners. I suspect at the end of the day, possibly the travelling public will be the losers, because what happens now is British Airways is now going to the 55, 57% of the slot. The Commission will undoubtedly look at it, and BA's argument, which is a reasonable one, is that, hang on a minute, in Paris, Air France have got the slots, and in Frankfurt, so have Lufthansa. But this is what the problem then is, of what happens with the regional flights into Dublin, which have been successful from an operational point of view. It's called Aer Lingus Regional. It's run by another little company called Stobart Air, which is also part of the PLC. It gets more complicated. Would BA take that over? I think not. Their success rate with taking over small airlines is pretty well zero. So we've got an interesting situation.
It is funny how it's all changed, because I mean, remembering back, there was several years ago, it was very clear that Ryanair, Michael O'Leary, was very keen on buying Aer Lingus, and as I recall, the Irish government at that time basically put the kibosh on it, saying, you know, it was going to be a monopoly. It wasn't going to work. And now, as you say, we get this IAG. IAG is the big group. It's British Airways, it's Iberia, and as you say, it's Vueling as well. them taking over, or yes, taking over Aer Lingus, and in a way, it's almost as monopolistic. So it's interesting that they've managed to come up with some kind of a formula that suits all parties, as you suggest.
The other thing is, and certainly the noises I'm getting from Dublin that it will go through, but there is resistance to the British actually taking over the Irish airline, even at this stage. I suppose there is one other scenario, is that Michael O'Leary would then outbid British Airways and offer more money, in which case Michael O'Leary's actually got to find that he has the money. The one thing you have to realise that's happened over the last 20 years is that airlines are now cash positive. They take your money 12 months up to 12 months ahead of travelling, instead of everything being done on credit. So Michael O'Leary has got the money to make a cash offer. Anything is possible, and I think it's taken a little bit longer before it sorts itself out.
Interesting stuff. Okay, let's move on and talk about medieval jousting. And I should say, actually, Stacey, before when we were talking earlier on, before you came on, Malcolm was saying to me, "Oh, I'm so pleased we're going to be talking about that because I was thinking about going down there." Is that right, Malcolm?
Well, I'm thinking of sending my grandson of about 10 and his mother and father down there. Unfortunately, I'm going to be away on a cruise at that time. But what is also interesting, we've been watching on television this very interesting program on the Armada as it sails past, not that Arundel. And what would have happened in 1666 at Arundel? Would they have been there with their telescopes or whatever they had in the way of fires burning to signal the Armada was on the way? Clearly, Arundel was a very important castle and part of the resistance of England against the nasty Spaniards.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, we'll have to find out. Stacey, over to you. Let's talk about this medieval jousting. You're responsible for organising the tournament, which is, as we say, at Arundel Castle down there in Sussex. Tell us a bit about it, when it's taking place and what it involves.
Yeah, hello there, Alistair. Yeah, I've been running the tournament down at Arundel Castle now for about 8 years. It started off as a small international tournament. I've been growing bigger and bigger every single year as obviously more people get involved, and it's sort of becoming more of it's very much on the international circuit now within the jousting community. And it's something also the Duke himself is very interested in. I've been spoken to Brian MacDonald, the castle manager. It's something that he's definitely on the highlight list for them for the year. It gets a lot of international recognition from all around the globe. We've got 8 coming over as far afield as the US of A to joust in 4 teams. So the jousters, when over the 6 days, are jousting for the team. So that's for a particular country. Now this year it's going to be England, Poland, France, and Burgundy, which is the Netherlands. Because obviously what we try and do to keep it historical, because that's quite important as well, I feel, is due to the location, is we try and base around 1475, so around that sort of period. So we're looking for countries, obviously, that were having jousting and whatnot going on at that period. But as the tournament's grown, we've made that a little bit more flexible. So this year, like obviously the USA didn't exist well, it did exist, but it wasn't it wasn't colonised by us and the Spaniards and various other people in the 1470s. So, and they certainly weren't.
It's just around the corner, if my poetic memory serves. Was it 1492? Was it that Columbus discovered?
Yeah, so it wasn't too far, but but that particular time it hadn't been discovered, and so that's basically what we did to make it more flexible and keep it and sort of extend the international feel, was to have people come and joust for the teams if they were there by association. For instance, we got Darth Rimmer coming over this year to joust for the English team because he's English. England has got obviously a lot of relationships with the US of A. Same with the Australian guys. However, it was someone from the Netherlands or something, then maybe that we wouldn't be so, we wouldn't have that sort of flexibility on it.
So what particular sports, I was going to say, what elements are included in a tournament? There's jousting itself, horseback. There's fighting on foot. There's what's the range of what's the word I'm looking for? Engagements.
In a tourney from the sort of period, and even modern day, you have jousting obviously as one of the main events. There's also the mounted melee, which is what they call the club tourney, and then there's also the foot combat as well. And that's we do the jousting and the foot combat at Arundel over the 6 days, but not the melee. The melee is very the mounted melee is very tiring for the horses, and having, as it's a 6-day jousting tournament with 3 jousts a day, I'd have to have probably another whole armada of horses there to be able to run the melee at the same time.
Wow. It sounds as if, when you were talking just now about the people coming over from the States and elsewhere, this is quite an established sport. How long have people been jousting competitively? I mean, apart from back in recent.
Yeah, well, obviously, going back in history, but jousting obviously came back in the Victorian period. It died out in very much in the sort of Tudor period after Henry VIII, and then it kind of got reborn in the Eglinton tournament as the Victorians kind of found armour and all of a sudden became very excited about Gothic revivalism, and then it hasn't really stopped from there.
So the teams that
really started doing jousting.
The teams that you've got now, coming to you next month in July, how long have they been jousting then?
We're very selective over which jousters we pick, and it's not just all down to horsemanship and things like that. They have to have very good lance control. They have to have very high quality armour, because obviously what we're doing is real. It's a real competition. So the guys are going out there to hit each other, and they actually get additional points. And so the armour has to be high level. However, they also look at obviously their personalities and their ability to basically, we run a chivalry competition, which the ladies judge over the week of the 6 days, and that's just based on their characters and stuff. Because you might have a really bad night, and you'd be annoying all week.
May I come in with a question here, which intrigues me? A, are the horses local, or do they bring them over themselves? And B, how much do these suits of armour weigh, please?
Well, basically, the horses are bought in by 2 horse suppliers because we have to have about 14 horses on site. They range from Spanish stallions right the way down to sort of common cob, because obviously we've got a range of riders with a range of skills. So we've got quite a big range of horses there, and we rotate the horses. All the horses are trained to obviously do the jousting. With regards to the itself, the armour weighs they varies between 20 to 30 kilograms, depending on the particular suit. They're all exact replicas of the originals, made of hard and tempered spring steel, worn.
Keep talking, Stacey. I'm just going to see if I can find these pictures that you think you've sent me. I know I've got a couple as well anyway, so I might be able to find them. This is, by the way, on Google Maps, obviously, so people know where Arundel is, where we're talking about. It's down here somewhere above Worthing. I had it actually pinned earlier on, so I've lost it now.
You were close. There was Worthing. I can see Worthing. It's a little bit.
There's Worthing. Little bit in from Worthing, isn't it?
A little further on.
There we are, Arundel Road. Here we are. It's down here, I think. There's the Arundel Road, and oh, there should be a thing on it. It's so annoying because I did actually stick a little marker on this earlier on. So why can I not find it? It's not that end of the Arundel Road, is it? No. Anyway, we're talking about.
So the other thing I was going to.
Yep. Go on. Yep.
The other thing I was going to say about the tournament, obviously, if your son and your family come and see the tournament, this is actually a competition. So these guys are coming here, they're competing for a team, they're competing for an individual. Highest recognition they can get is the individual jousting champion for the week, because that's very hard to achieve. And obviously, they enter into what we call the Order of Arundel, then, which is something that you can only win by you can't get it through association. You have to actually win the tournament. So these guys are, as you can see from some of the pictures here, going out there to hit each other pretty pretty hard. That's Phil Leach from Australia there, who came over last year.
Now, you recognise him because of his shield, or
because of his coat of arms? Yeah, and obviously being on the jousting circuit myself, I obviously know a lot of these armours and stuff like that, of what they look like. I mean, these guys are what you're going to see if you come to the tournament. This is Formula One of jousting. There's a lot of people who say they do jousting in the UK, and they'll do string mail jousting. They'll do shows. You know, this is very much the Wimbledon, if you want, the Lords of jousting. There are other jousting tournaments, big jousting tournaments. I'm going to joust at a few of them this year as well, in Poland and Quebec and whatnot.
Wow.
But a lot of those tournaments are over 3 days, as with Arundel's over 6, which makes it really unique, because you'll be surprised how strongly people start off in the tournament and they sort of fall away as the week goes on, because it's actually very mentally draining.
The question that you probably get asked the most is, what are those lances made of, and do people get hurt? I'm guessing.
Yes, we do get hurt. We try not to get hurt. I mean, the armour's designed, obviously, to take a huge amount of impact. I mean, I've been knocked out twice at Arundel.
Wow.
One day it's broken, my wrist dislocated. So it's like any full contact sport. I would say it's less dangerous than rugby, for instance, because they're not wearing armour, but it's still a full contact sport.
Can
the
I
end we
say
did is we split the ends of the lances.
Mm.
I was just going to say, with the weight of this armour, 23 kilos in business travel terms, is carry it in a pretty heavy suitcase. So these poor animals are going to have to carry however many kilos, 70, 80 kilos of, if it was me, plus 20 odd kilos of armour. So they're carrying quite a bit of weight. Must be quite a weight hitting you if you're the poor fellow at the other end.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously you've got a lot of PSI down to you. I mean, all the horses are very, very fit. They're all trained on regularly, and they do lots of different things. And we only actually, you're only on actually doing the jousting for about sort of 30 minutes at a time. So we're never on the horses for a long, long period of time from that side of things. Because obviously horse welfare is something we take in, it is very considered, and they are a #1 priority. But when we're hitting each other, obviously you are getting one hell of an impact. The lance, to say the last 3 foot of the lance is actually designed to break. Essentially, it's been weakened. It's been cut to weaken, because that gives the spectacle, really. It explodes. People see that. It's a bit more for the audience, to be honest with you, because there's a coronel on the end. The scorer and judges are either end of the block. They're looking for where the point of that actually hits, and if they hit them in the shield, they get 3 points. If they hit them in the arm, they get 1. Hit them in the body, they get 2. If they hit them in the head or the face, they still get 3 points as well, because we don't penalise them for that. It's considered a valid target. But what tends to cause the biggest amount of impact is obviously when that's gone, then we're hitting the lance, and that's really down to how hard the actual jouster wants to hold on to the lance. If he's feeling particularly like he wants to make sure he gets that extra points for breakage, that he's going to really couch that lance and hit him on. And it's something over the week you each other on, and if someone says to one of the other jousters, "Oh, you've got a bit of a soft couch there," he's not referring to his sofa. He's referring to the fact that basically he's just not hitting people very hard, and he might want to up his game.
Wow. And what about the points for the foot combat?
The foot combat is actually not part of the scored competition. It's actually done. The foot combat is done on the side by a group called Dawe, who are the local group from Arundel Castle themselves.
Right.
So they do a number of they have their own mini competition between their nights. So they are actually competing, but it's not the jousters doing the foot combat. So there's 2 separate sort of competitions going on there. They have their own mini competition for the foot combat, and we have a competition for the jousting and the chivalry and the skill at arms.
Wow. Okay. And are there any what was the final, the social one, the being a good knight, the etiquette one?
The chivalry prize, yeah, that's I've never won that. I've never actually won the chivalry prize, to be fair.
Is there a reason for that then?
It's quite hard. I think it's quite hard actually organising the tournament and jousting. I mean, I don't joust in the tournament every year. I have a year jousting, and I have a year off jousting, so I can focus on running it. But I think as the tournament director, it doesn't necessarily make you the most necessarily beloved person all of the time.
So But Malcolm is going to be away on his holes this year, but I can see him already psychologically prepping himself for next year and competing for the Chivalry Award. So what are his best chances of winning it? How should he prep himself?
Well, the Chivalry Prize is given by the ladies. So over the 6 days, the 3 lady judges, basically the female, main female judges, Carl Van Dola Evans, who's my wife, she scores the horsemanship point. So for every joust, the guys get an additional point for horsemanship if they're deemed to have been. Again, we like to consider the horses. We want to make sure the jousters are riding them correctly and appropriately, and also giving a good target and starting off as they should for their opponent. So she does that. Then basically they're looking at, you know, how courteous the jousters are. Are they being helpful? Are they nice? Are they arguing with the other judges over? All right. But did they get? In jousting's a very aggressive sport, so you're trying to keep the guys in the zone and stop them just like, you know, seeing the red mist and going, you know, you're clamped in all this armour, things start to go wrong, it's not going your way, all of a sudden you're losing your toys out the pram, you start shouting at someone, run over squires and, you know, and things like that.
That's
and so
you've lost any chances you had, of winning the Chivalry Prize.
There was a thing on the film on the television a couple of days ago with jousting, and had I known this was going to be on, I would have watched it much more so. I can't remember exactly which king it was, but there was a couple of guys finished up being carted away, finished forever. But
well, it is a dangerous sport. I mean, the King of France actually died jousting, doing exactly the same thing. We take a risk when we go out there. There are weaknesses in the armour. Obviously the eye slot being one of them. There's weaknesses underneath the armpits and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's like any full contact sport. You accept the risks when you go out there. I mean, like I said, this really is the Formula One of jousting. You're not going to get, if you were to go to the Gold Cup for polo, this is it at Arundel Castle. There isn't anywhere else in the country that is going to give you the same experience. And also, you know, with the guys actually competing at that level. I mean, the armours themselves, cost-wise, range between £15,000 and £20,000 each. So you know they are a sport. They're actually going hitting each other with.
Can you get sports competitor insurance?
I could try. I'm insured. I'm not necessarily sure they'd pay out if I got carted off to hospital.
I mean, I'm just wondering what the what the premiums might be for that. But tell us. Let's wind this up. And what I was interested in is from an audience perspective. I think it's great that you've got both elements in there. That you've got the entertainment element and you've also got the competitive element. What sort of numbers? I mean, how big are the crowds? How many people get to the castle each year? And is it oversubscribed? Is it hard to get in? Do you need to buy tickets beforehand? Or
well, I mean, one thing is obviously the tournament's growing over the last sort of. It's been growing and growing over the last sort of 8 years, really, from when we started it to now. And obviously, as it's got bigger, more people want to come, and we get a lot of people every year who come back every single year with their families because they actually just love. And some people actually come every single day because once they get into the competition, they get into the personalities. The guys go out and they talk to the audience, and you know people they get behind them. They also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. So last year, I mean this year, the castle's actually introduced online booking. Because last year, it became apparent that basically they needed to increase the way of getting people into the castle faster. So that's something the castle's really invested in and looked at that and said, well, you know, people really want to come into this tournament, so we need to increase, our capacity for getting people in and out of the castle. And then they've also, as well, one of the things that we've changed is also the need to spread. You know, we've got activities from children's activities that are away from the tournament and the competition, for the families to go and do. And they've looked at the castle is looking to obviously increase the different range of things for children's, like having a children's play area. So you know, we basically just cater for a whole family day out, and that's something that they've really captured now, I think.
I love the idea that as it develops, that you can get fans. Maybe the Burgundians will bring their fans across with them, and likewise the Polish team and the Americans, and that would be great.
Well, there are people now who've already booked their week-long tickets for the tournament, and who will come every single day. And you know, a lot of people like to come on the Sunday, and you know, and things like that, which is great. But you know, if you want to see, it's definitely worth coming and supporting the guys through the week, because they're there jousting every single day. You know.
For those who are keen to do just that, are there camping facilities in the grounds of the castle or anything that visitors can stay at, or do they have to find campsites in the area?
No, there's local campsites within the area. There's no capacity within the actual grounds themselves. Obviously, it's the Duke's home; he lives there, so it's not something he opens up to the general public, other than obviously during the day in normal visiting hours. But there are lots of places local to the area, or you know, you can pop just you know, for goods on places to stay. If Arundel's booked up, there's also Worthing just down the road. My family stayed there last time and got, you know, a great rate on a B&B for, I think it's like £25 a night. So, you know, if you want to come down, then please do so, because, like I say, this happens once a year. It's one of the, well, it is the biggest jousting tournament in the world, and you know, we're very proud of what we've managed to build here.
Do you know what roughly what the ticket prices are? I mean, what's it cost for a day?
You'd have to go onto the website. If you go onto the, I'm not going to say actually, but I think it's about 22 for £22 or something like that.
I wasn't sure that you would, because you're much more involved with the actual.
Yeah, I basically run the tournament side of it.
Exactly. Okay, I should say though, for those watching, that it takes place there at Arundel Castle from the 21st to the 26th of July, and the tickets you get from actually at the Arundel Castle site, I think is where you should go. Certainly you can find the event there, and that'll tell you where you can get the tickets if it's not actually on the site itself. But that is www.arundelcastle.org, and that will get you to the right place. I think it sounds actually brilliant, Stacey. If I can find my way down there, I think I will, because it's got everything. It's got, you know, it's got competition, and it's certainly got that visual element. I mean, photographically, when I was putting those pictures up just now, I was just thinking, you know, this is photo porn. This is fantastic stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're basically taking the castle back to the 1400s, and that's what I love about this tournament. It's basically taking, it's not just having we're going to have a jousting competition and we're going to make it a modern context. Yeah, there are modern elements to it, such as the guy like Dawe from the USA, but once you're in there, immersed, you are literally stepping back into the 1400s, exactly as it would have been. You know, the guys were down there, the tents are all there, the history's all there, and we are there all day in kit, in armour, jousting and doing exactly what they would have done at the time. Yeah. And then the other interesting fact is, obviously, this castle, Arundel Castle, actually has a tournament license. It has a jousting license. Which was issued to the Knight Marshal, which of course the Duke of Norfolk, the of England, which obviously the Duke of Norfolk still is. So, you know, it's absolutely the right place where this tournament should be taking place.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. All right, guys, thank you ever so much for joining me. Really interesting, and I'll put the various links to the things that we need to know about, like BTN newsletter, and also to the castle and that event in the show notes when this one gets saved as a YouTube video. Next week, anybody's guess at the moment. I'm still not quite sure how that's going to work out. I did say last week it'll probably be about museums, but I'm thinking I may actually have to offset that again by another week. So watch the travelcoffeebreak.org website. That'll tell you what I'm thinking, and you're welcome to join me if you're in the travel industry or travel media, or you've just got travel stuff you want to talk about. Then do get in touch and let me know, and we'll talk about it every Wednesday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Do join me next week, and from all three of us, bye for now.